1. We're taking a closer look at a classic beauty, a 1966 Ford Thunderbird that's up for grabs on Craigslist. With an asking price of $9,460, this ride is definitely worth considering if you're in the market for a vintage cruiser. Now let's dive into the details. The seller mentions that this T-Bird is a nice driver that rides smooth, shifts well, and brakes well. That's always a good sign when you're dealing with a car that's over half a century old. Under the hood, you'll find a 390 FE engine that's running strong with no smoke, paired with a Cruise-O-Matic 3-speed automatic transmission. The seller is upfront about the tires being older, but they assure us that they hold air great and ride fine. As for the paint, it looks good from a distance, but the pics do show some flaws upon closer inspection. Hey, it's a 55-year-old car, so a few imperfections are to be expected, right? One thing to note is that while the AC is present, it's currently inoperable. But hey, who needs AC when you've got the wind in your hair and the roar of that 390 engine in your ears? Plus, the aftermarket Bluetooth stereo system is a nice modern touch that'll let you cruise to your favorite tunes. The seller is offering up this classic ride with a clean blue title, and they're open to trades for other classic cars, trucks, or even a Land Cruiser or Land Rover. So, if you've got something cool to swap, it might be worth reaching out. All in all, this 1966 Ford Thunderbird seems like a solid choice for anyone looking to experience the charm and style of a vintage ride. It's got a few minor issues, but nothing that seems too daunting for a true enthusiast. If you're ready to cruise in classic style, this T-Bird might just be the one for you. 2. We've got a real treat for you. A stunning 1979 Cadillac Coupe de Ville that's up for sale on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at just $7,900, and from what the seller tells us, it seems like an absolute steal. First off, let's talk about the condition of this classic caddy. The seller states that it's in excellent shape, and based on the description, we have no reason to doubt them. They mention that it's been garage kept, which is always a huge plus for a vintage ride like this. It's clear that the owner has taken great care of this car over the years. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 8-cylinder engine that's paired with a smooth shifting automatic transmission. The seller assures us that both the motor and trans are in perfect working order, which is exactly what you want to hear when you're considering a classic car purchase. Inside, the Coupe de Ville is just as impressive as it is on the outside. The leather seats are in great condition, and the car comes loaded with features like climate control, a sunroof, and cruise control. Plus, with only 81,000 miles on the odometer, this caddy has plenty of life left in it. The seller also mentions that the brakes and tires are in good condition, with brand new tires recently installed. And if you're worried about floor protection, don't be. The car comes with all the floor mats you'll need. Overall, this 1979 Cadillac Coupe de Ville seems like an incredible find. It's clean, well-maintained, and loaded with features that make it a joy to drive. And with a clean title and a seller who seems genuinely invested in finding a good home for this classic ride, you can feel confident that you're getting a great deal. So if you're in the market for a vintage Cadillac that's ready to hit the road, this Coupe de Ville might just be the one for you. Don't miss out on the chance to own a piece of American automotive history. 3. We're taking a look at a 1976 Plymouth Duster that's up for sale on Craigslist. This classic ride is priced at $7,000. But before you get too excited, let's dive into the details and see what we're really working with here. First off, it's important to note that the 318 engine under the hood is currently not running. The seller mentions that it was running during their time of ownership, but the engine has since gotten tired. On the bright side, the car does come with a good 727 TF transmission, so that's one less thing to worry about. The seller also points out that this Duster was an AC car, which is a nice feature to have, especially in a classic ride like this. However, they don't specify whether the AC system is still intact or functional, so that's something to keep in mind. Now let's talk about the condition of this Duster. The seller is upfront about the fact that there is rust present in the trunk pan and on the exterior of the car, as shown in the pictures. However, they do note that the floor pans are solid, which is a good sign. The interior is also said to be all intact, which is another plus. It's clear that this Duster is a project car that will require some work to get it back on the road. The seller mentions that they started stripping it down at one point, but got sidetracked by work and other projects. As a result, the car has been tucked away for a few years now. One thing to note is that all the tires are said to hold air, which is a good starting point. And the car does come with a clean title, so you won't have to worry about any legal issues there. Overall, this 1976 Plymouth Duster is a classic car with a lot of potential, but it's definitely not a turnkey ride. If you're looking for a project car to sink your teeth into, and you've got the skills and patience to see it through, this Duster might be worth considering. Just be prepared to put in some work to get it back to its former glory. The asking price of $7,000 might seem a bit steep for a non-running project car, but the seller does say OBO, or best offer, so there may be some wiggle room there. If you're serious about taking on this project, it might be worth reaching out to the seller and seeing if you can negotiate a better price. 4. We've got a real treat for you. A 1982 Chevy Z28 Camaro that's up for sale on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at just $6,900, and from what the seller tells us, it's a real gem that's hard to find. First off, let's talk about what makes this Camaro so special. The seller mentions that it's the first year of the new body style, which is definitely a selling point for collectors and enthusiasts alike. But that's not all. This Camaro has been totally gone over recently, with a ton of upgrades and improvements that make it a real standout. Under the hood, you'll find a built 350 V8 engine that was installed by the previous owner at 75,000 miles. This engine has been punched .030 over with TRW forged pistons, roller rockers, a crane cam, an Edelbrock intake, and a Holley 4-barrel carburetor, all documented by Leedy Automotive Machine Shop in York, PA. That's a serious setup that's sure to turn heads and get your heart racing. But the upgrades don't stop there. The seller also rebuilt the rear end with 3.42 gears, along with new rear springs, shocks, brake shoes, and wheel cylinders. The front brakes, wheel bearings, and struts were also replaced by the previous owner. And if that wasn't enough, the seller even installed a new power steering gearbox and pump. The tires on this Camaro are like new, with new wheel center caps and lug nuts to boot. And while the interior has been switched out in the hatch area, the rest of it is original and in good condition. The seller even replaced the old ripped vinyl driver's side seat with a nice used 1986 Camaro cloth one. Perhaps most importantly, this Camaro is a solid car with no rust. It's been given a new blue and silver trimmed paint job that looks absolutely stunning. And with a recent tune-up on the carburetor and ignition, it's ready to hit the road and turn heads wherever it goes. The seller is clearly motivated to sell this beauty, and it's easy to see why. They mention that they hate to let it go, but they simply can't keep them all. And with a clean PA title in their name and in hand, you can feel confident that this is a legitimate sale. Overall, this 1982 Chevy Z28 Camaro seems like an incredible find for any car enthusiast or collector. It's got a ton of upgrades and improvements that make it a real standout, and it's in great condition both inside and out. If you're in the market for a classic Camaro that's ready to hit the road and turn heads, this might just be the one for you. 5. We're taking a closer look at a 1978 Chevy Malibu that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This two-door coupe is priced at $12,300, and it's definitely worth considering if you're in the market for a classic ride with some serious power under the hood. Let's dive into the details, shall we? The seller mentions that this Malibu comes equipped with a 350 engine that's been fitted with a cam. While they're not sure of the exact size, it's clear that this engine means business. The seller also notes that the car runs and drives nicely, which is always a good sign when you're dealing with a classic ride. Now, it's worth noting that the seller is in a bit of a bind here. They mention that they've lost their storage space and need to sell the car as a result. While it's never fun to be in that situation, it does present an opportunity for a savvy buyer to potentially score a great deal on a classic Chevy. The seller is asking $12,300 in cash for this Malibu, which seems like a fair price considering the engine upgrades and the overall condition of the car. However, they also mention that they're open to trades, So if you've got something cool to swap, it might be worth reaching out and seeing what kind of deal you can work out. One thing to keep in mind is that the seller is only accepting phone calls at the moment. They won't respond to texts or emails, so if you're serious about making an offer on this Malibu, you'll need to pick up the phone and give them a call. Overall, this 1978 Chevy Malibu seems like a solid choice for anyone looking for a classic ride with some serious power under the hood. The 350 engine with the mystery cam is definitely intriguing, and the fact that the car runs and drives nicely is a big plus. While the asking price of $12,300 might seem a bit steep at first glance, it's important to remember that this is a classic car with some significant upgrades. If you're willing to negotiate or have something cool to trade, you might be able to work out a deal that fits your budget. At the end of the day, if you're a fan of classic Chevys and you're in the market for a two-door coupe with some serious attitude, this 1978 Malibu might just be the ride you've been waiting for. Just be sure to give the seller a call and see if you can work out a deal that makes sense for both parties. Who knows? You might just end up cruising the streets in style behind the wheel of this classic Chevy. 6. We're taking a look at a 1979 Pontiac Firebird Formula that's up for sale on Craigslist. This classic ride is priced at just $5,000, and while it may need a little TLC, it seems like a solid choice for anyone looking for a project car with plenty of potential. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Firebird. The seller states that it's in good condition overall, with no rust to speak of. That's always a big plus when you're dealing with a classic car like this, as rust can be a real nightmare to deal with. The seller also mentions that the car runs and moves, which is another good sign. Under the hood, you'll find an 8-cylinder engine that's paired with an automatic transmission. While the seller doesn't provide any specifics on the engine, it's safe to assume that it's got plenty of power to get this Firebird moving. Now it's worth noting that this Firebird is going to need some work to get it looking its best. The seller mentions that it needs a paint job, which is pretty common for a car of this age. The odometer is also broken, so it's hard to say exactly how many miles are on this car. The seller does provide an odometer reading of 135 Sa 987, but it's unclear if that's accurate or not. Despite these issues, there's a lot to like about this Firebird. The seller states that it's 100% original, which is a big selling point for collectors and enthusiasts alike. Original cars are getting harder and harder to find these days, so the fact that this Firebird is all original is definitely a plus. The asking price of $5,000 seems pretty reasonable for a car like this, especially considering its originality and the fact that it runs and moves. Of course, you'll want to factor in the cost of a paint job and any other necessary repairs when considering your offer. Overall, this 1979 Firebird Formula seems like a solid project car for anyone who's willing to put in a little work. It's got a strong engine, no rust, and plenty of originality, which are all big selling points for a classic car like this. While it may not be in perfect condition, it's got plenty of potential to be a real head-turner once it's been fixed up. 7. We've got a real treat for you. A stunning 1968 Ford Ranchero that's up for sale on Craigslist. This classic ride is priced at $12,500, and from what the seller tells us, it's an absolute gem that's sure to turn heads wherever it goes. First off, let's talk about what makes this Ranchero so special. Under the hood, you'll find a 289 V8 motor that the seller says sounds absolutely great. And with a 4-barrel carburetor and a smooth-shifting automatic transmission, this Ranchero is an absolute joy to drive. But the upgrades don't stop there. This Ranchero also features power steering and front disc brakes, making it easy to handle and stop on a dime. The seller mentions that it's been recently serviced, with a freshly redone carburetor, fresh fluids, and a fresh tune-up. The tires are also in good shape, and there's a new battery to ensure reliable starting every time. One of the things that really sets this Ranchero apart is its stunning red paint job. The seller describes it as a pretty car that's sure to catch eyes wherever it goes. And with all the lights in good working order and the wipers functioning properly, you can feel confident driving this beauty in any weather. Now, it's worth noting that this Ranchero doesn't have air conditioning, but it does have a working heater and defroster. And while some might see that as a drawback, others might appreciate the added simplicity and reliability of a classic car without all the modern bells and whistles. The seller is upfront about the fact that this Ranchero is a California car, which is a big plus for anyone looking for a rust-free classic. And with a clean California title in hand, you can feel confident that this is a legitimate sale. Perhaps most importantly, the seller emphasizes that this Ranchero is a reliable daily driver that starts right up every time. They even go so far as to say that it runs and drives good, which is music to any car enthusiast's ears. The asking price of $12,500 might seem a bit steep at first glance, but the seller is quick to point out that other Rancheros at this price point are often in much worse shape. And with the recent upgrades and servicing, it's clear that this Ranchero has been well cared for and is ready to hit the road. Overall, this 1968 Ford Ranchero seems like an incredible find for anyone in the market for a classic ride with plenty of style and reliability. With its powerful V8 engine, smooth automatic transmission, and stunning red paint job, this Ranchero is sure to turn heads and put a smile on your face every time you get behind the wheel. 8. We're taking a closer look at a 1985 Chevrolet Monte Carlo that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic ride is priced at $10,500, and from what the seller tells us, it's a real gem that's sure to get your heart racing. First off, let's talk about what makes this Monte Carlo so special. The seller mentions that it's a real SS Supersport model, which is confirmed by the VIN number. That alone makes this car a rare find and a true collector's item. Under the hood, you'll find a beastly 5.0 V8 305 engine that's been upgraded with Holley headers and an Edelbrock carburetor. The seller also mentions that the car has a quick shifter and a speed shifter, which suggests that this Monte Carlo is built for performance. But the upgrades don't stop there. The seller notes that the car has good tires, which is always a plus when you're dealing with a high-performance machine like this. And while the car may need some cosmetic work, like paint, interior touch-ups, and a new headliner, the seller emphasizes that it runs and drives great. One of the things that really sets this Monte Carlo apart is its stunning LA Dodger blue color. It's a classic shade that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. And with a clean title in the seller's name and current registration, you can feel confident that this is a legitimate sale. Now, it's worth noting that this Monte Carlo is a 40-year-old car, so it's not going to be in perfect condition. The seller is upfront about the fact that it needs some cosmetic work to be a perfect restoration. But if you're looking for a classic ride that runs and drives like a beast, this Monte Carlo might just be the one for you. The asking price of $10,500 might seem a bit steep at first glance, but it's important to remember that this is a rare SS model with some serious upgrades under the hood. If you're a collector or an enthusiast looking for a high-performance classic, this Monte Carlo is definitely worth considering. Overall, this 1985 Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS seems like an incredible find for anyone in the market for a classic ride with plenty of power and style. With its rare SS designation, upgraded engine, and stunning LA Dodger blue color, this car is sure to turn heads and get your heart racing every time you get behind the wheel. 9. We've got a real treat for you. A 1984 Chevrolet Corvette that's been set up specifically for track days. This beauty is priced at just $3,150, and from what the seller tells us, it's an absolute steal for anyone looking to get into the world of competitive racing. First off, let's talk about what makes this Corvette so special. The seller mentions that it's been gutted and set up specifically for track use, with upgraded Corvette Z06 wheels on all four corners and suspension that's been tuned for optimal performance. The custom free-flow dual exhaust and recent fuel pump upgrade are also nice touches that show this car has been well cared for. But the real selling point here is the Corvette's proven track record. The seller notes that these early C4 Corvettes were some of the best track and race cars for the money back in the 1980s, regularly besting Porsches, BMWs, and even Italian exotics in SCCA racing. In fact, they were so dominant that they were eventually banned from competition. leading Chevrolet to start the Corvette Challenge series in 1988. Now, it's worth noting that this Corvette is not street legal in its current state. The seller mentions that there are almost $1,000 in back fees if you want to get it registered for road use. But if you're looking for a dedicated track car that's ready to tear up the asphalt right out of the box, this Corvette is hard to beat. The seller emphasizes that these C4 Corvettes are incredibly reliable, fast, and handle exceptionally well. They're also relatively simple to work on and maintain, with parts readily available at reasonable prices. So if you're looking for a car that can hold its own on the track without breaking the bank, this Corvette is definitely worth considering. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence and get a thorough inspection before making an offer. But based on the seller's description and the car's overall condition, this Corvette seems like a solid bet for anyone looking to get into the world of competitive racing. The asking price of $3,950 might seem a bit steep for a car that's not street legal. But it's important to remember that this is a purpose-built track car with a proven pedigree. The seller even goes so far as to say that there's not much out there that can compare to the look, stance, and performance of this Corvette at this price point. 10. We've got a real treat for you. A stunning 1973 Lincoln Continental Mark IV that's up for sale on Craigslist. This classic beauty is priced at just $8,200, and from what the seller tells us, it's an absolute gem that's sure to turn heads wherever it goes. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Continental. The seller describes it as being in excellent shape, and based on the pictures provided, it's easy to see why. The car looks absolutely gorgeous both inside and out, with only minor cosmetic issues that are to be expected from a vehicle of this age. One of the things that really sets this Continental apart is the fact that it's being sold by the original owner. That means you can feel confident knowing that this car has been well cared for throughout its entire life. And with just 99,000 actual miles on the odometer, it's clear that this Continental has plenty of life left in it. Under the hood, you'll find a beefy 460 4BBL V8 engine that's paired with an automatic transmission. The seller mentions that the car runs and drives great, which is always a good sign when you're dealing with a classic ride like this. Inside, the Continental is loaded with features that were cutting edge back in 1973. You've got power windows, power locks, power steering, and even air conditioning, all of which are sure to make your driving experience that much more enjoyable. And with a clean interior that looks just as good as the exterior, you'll feel like royalty every time you slide behind the wheel. Another big selling point for this Continental is the fact that it's smog exempt. That means you won't have to worry about passing any pesky emissions tests, which can be a real headache for classic car owners in some states. And with current registration and collector plates, you can feel confident that this car is ready to hit the road whenever you are. Now, it's worth noting that the seller is asking $8,200 or best offer for this Continental. While that might seem like a lot of money at first glance, it's important to remember that this is a rare and highly sought-after classic car. These Continentals are getting harder and harder to find in good condition, and with the original owner history and low mileage, this one is sure to be a hit with collectors and enthusiasts alike. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection before making an offer. But based on the seller's description and the pictures provided, this 1973 Lincoln Continental Mark IV seems like an incredible find for anyone in the market for a classic luxury car. 11. We've got something truly special for you. A 1963 Dodge Dart that's up for sale on Craigslist. This classic beauty is priced at $10,500, and from what the seller tells us, it's an absolute time capsule that's sure to make any vintage car lover weak in the knees. First off, let's talk about the history of this Dart. The seller mentions that it's an original Southern California car that was bought and lived its entire life in Santa Barbara. That means it's been spared the ravages of harsh winters and road salt that can really take a toll on classic cars. It's always a good sign when you find a vintage ride that spent its life in a mild climate like California. But the real kicker here is the condition of this Dart. The seller states that it's a matching numbers car with its original paint still intact. That's incredibly rare for a car that's almost 60 years old. And with all the service records dating back to 1964, including the original MSRP, you can feel confident knowing that this car has been well cared for throughout its entire life. Under the hood, you'll find a 6-cylinder engine that's paired with an automatic transmission. While it may not be the most powerful setup out there, it's sure to provide plenty of vintage charm and reliability. And with new tires and pretty much everything else in good working order, this Dart is ready to hit the road and turn heads wherever it goes. One of the things that really sets this Dart apart is the fact that it comes with 2 sets of keys. That may not seem like a big deal, but it's a small detail that shows just how well preserved this car really is. It's the kind of thing that collectors and enthusiasts really appreciate. Now, it's worth noting that the seller is asking $10,500 for this Dart. While that may seem like a lot of money for a 6-cylinder car from the 60s, it's important to remember just how rare and well preserved this particular example is. With its original paint, matching numbers, and complete service history, this Dart is a true unicorn in the world of classic cars. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection before making an offer. But based on the seller's description and the overall condition of this Dart, it seems like an incredible find for anyone who appreciates vintage American iron. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic car that's sure to turn heads and start conversations wherever you go, this 1963 Dodge Dart is definitely worth a closer look. With its original paint, matching numbers, and complete service history, it's the kind of car that collectors dream about. And with a price tag of just $2,500, it's a relative bargain compared to many other classic cars out there. 12. We're taking a look at a classic 1966 Oldsmobile Toronado that's up for sale on Craigslist. This vintage beauty is priced at $6,000 or best offer, and while it may need a little bit of work, it could be a real gem for the right buyer. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Toronado. The seller describes it as being in good shape overall, which is always a promising sign when you're dealing with a car that's over 50 years old. However, they do mention that it needs a little bit of carburetor work. While that may sound intimidating to some buyers, it's actually a relatively common issue with classic cars like this, and it's something that a skilled mechanic should be able to fix without too much trouble. One of the things that really sets this Toronado apart is its unique styling. As one of the first front-wheel drive cars produced by an American manufacturer, the Toronado was a real trailblazer when it first hit the market in 1966. With its sleek, fastback roofline and hidden headlights, it's a car that's sure to turn heads wherever it goes. Under the hood, you'll likely find a powerful V8 engine that's paired with an automatic transmission. While the seller doesn't provide any specific details about the drivetrain, it's safe to assume that this Toronado has plenty of get up and go, even if it does need a little bit of carburetor work to get it running at its best. Now, it's worth noting that the seller is asking $6,000 or best offer for this Toronado. While that may seem like a lot of money for a car that needs some work, it's actually not a bad price for a classic ride like this. Toronados from this era are becoming increasingly rare and sought after by collectors and enthusiasts, and finding one in good overall condition like this is getting harder and harder to do. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection before making an offer. And with a car that's as old as this Toronado, it's especially important to have a skilled mechanic take a look at it to identify any potential issues beyond just the carburetor. But if you're handy with a wrench and you're looking for a classic car project that won't break the bank, this 1966 Oldsmobile Toronado could be a real diamond in the rough. With its unique styling, powerful V8 engine, and overall good condition, it's a car that has a lot of potential for the right buyer. 13. We're taking a closer look at a 1985 Chevrolet Camaro that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic muscle car is priced at $5,000, and while it may need some work, it could be the perfect project car for the right buyer. First off, let's talk about what makes this Camaro so special. Under the hood, you'll find a Chevy small block 350 engine that's sure to get your heart racing. These engines are known for their power and reliability, and with the right modifications, they can be an absolute blast to drive. The seller mentions that the car runs, which is always a good sign when you're dealing with a classic ride like this. It also has power steering and power windows, which are nice creature comforts to have in a car from this era. Now it's worth noting that this Camaro isn't in perfect condition. The seller is upfront about the fact that there is an oil leak and some rust spots on the body. They also mention that the odometer is broken, so it's hard to say exactly how many miles are on this car. The seller does provide a rough estimate of 300,000 miles, but it's unclear how accurate that number is. Despite these issues, the seller describes the overall condition of the car as good. They also mention that they're the third owner, which suggests that this Camaro has been well cared for throughout its life. One of the things that really sets this Camaro apart is its potential as a project car. With a little bit of elbow grease and some TLC, this classic ride could be transformed into a real head-turner. The oil leak and rust spots are relatively minor issues that can be addressed with some basic mechanical know-how and bodywork. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection before making an offer. And with a car that's as old as this Camaro, it's especially important to have a skilled mechanic take a look at it to identify any potential issues beyond just the oil leak and rust. But if you're handy with a wrench and you're looking for a classic car project that won't break the bank, this 1985 Chevrolet Camaro could be a real diamond in the rough. With its powerful small block 350 engine, classic good looks, and potential for customization, it's a car that has a lot of potential for the right buyer. 14. We've got a real classic on our hands. A 1979 Lincoln Town Coupe that's up for grabs on Craigslist for just $2,500. This beauty has been around the block a few times, with 85,432 miles on the odometer, but it's still got plenty of life left in it. Now I've got to be straight with you. This Lincoln has seen better days. The seller admits there's some rust on the body, and the interior could use a good cleaning. But hey, that's just part of the charm, right? It's a survivor, a car with a story to tell. Under the hood, you'll find a 400 cubic inch V8 engine that's paired with an automatic transmission. This baby's got rear-wheel drive, so you can imagine how smooth it must ride. And with a clean New York title, you can trust that this car's history is on the up and up. One thing to note, this particular model doesn't have a sunroof. But who needs a sunroof when you've got a classic like this? The body's straight, and the gray paint job gives it a real sophisticated look. Plus, it's riding on newer tires and some sweet Dayton wire wheels. Now I know what you might be thinking. But wait, it says as is in the ad. And you're right, it does. But that's just the seller being upfront and honest. This car's not perfect, but it's got potential. With a little TLC, you could have a real head-turner on your hands. So if you're in the market for a classic American luxury car with a bit of character, this 1979 Lincoln Town Coupe might just be the one for you. It's got style, it's got history, and it's got a price tag that won't break the bank. What more could you ask for? 15. We've got a real gem to talk about. A stunning 1955 Oldsmobile 98 that's up for sale on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $15,000 or best offer, and let me tell you, it's worth every penny. First off, just take a look at that gorgeous turquoise exterior. It's a color that just screams classic 1950s style, and it's sure to turn heads wherever you go. And when you peek inside, you'll find a green interior that's just as stunning. It's clear that this car has been well maintained over the years. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful V8 motor that's only got 51,200 miles on it. That's right. This car has been around for over 60 years, but it's still got plenty of life left in it. And with rear-wheel drive and an automatic transmission, you can bet it's a smooth ride. Now, the seller does mention a couple of minor issues. The brakes need to be bled, and the windshield wiper motor needs some attention. But hey, that's just part of owning a classic car, right? It's all about the journey, not just the destination. One thing I really love about this Oldsmobile is the attention to detail. The seller has updated the radio, but they've kept the original in place for that classic look. It's little touches like that that really make this car special. And can we talk about the mileage for a second? 51,200 miles might sound like a lot, But for a car that's been around since 1955, that's practically nothing. This car has been cherished and cared for, and it shows. So, if you're in the market for a classic American sedan with style, power, and a whole lot of character, this 1955 Oldsmobile 98 might just be the one for you. It's got a clean title, a reasonable price tag, and a whole lot of potential. Don't miss out on this opportunity to own a piece of automotive history. 16. We're taking a closer look at a 1974 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic American sports car is priced at $14,500 firm, and while it's not in perfect condition, it's definitely got potential. First things first, let's talk about the good stuff. This Corvette has a fresh coat of paint and a new interior, so it's already looking pretty sharp. And under the hood, you'll find a gas-powered engine that's paired with an automatic transmission. It runs and drives, so you can hop in and hit the road right away. But, as with any classic car, there are a few things that need some attention. The seller mentions that the painted bumpers and seals still need to be put on the car, so that's something to keep in mind. And while they don't go into too much detail, they do say that there are some small things that need to be buttoned up. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, 135,000 miles? That's a lot. And you're not wrong. But here's the thing. This is a Corvette we're talking about. These cars were built to last, and with proper maintenance and care, they can keep running for a long, long time. Plus, the seller has a clean title, so you can trust that this car's history is on the up and up. One thing to keep in mind, this Corvette is located in Syracuse, Kansas. So if you're not local, you'll need to factor in the cost of transportation. But if you're willing to make the trip or hire a shipping company, you could be the proud owner of a classic American sports car. At the end of the day, this 1974 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray is a car with a lot of potential. It's not perfect, but it's got a fresh paint job, a new interior, and a whole lot of character. And at $14,500 firm, it's a pretty solid deal for a classic Corvette. So if you're ready to take on a little bit of a project and cruise around in style, this might just be the car for you. 17. We've got a real treat for you. A 1950 Oldsmobile Rocket 88 that's up for sale on Craigslist for just $13,000. This is a car that's got a whole lot of history behind it, and it's sure to turn heads wherever you go. First off, let's talk about what makes this car so special. The Oldsmobile Rocket 88 was one of the first muscle cars ever made, and it's got a reputation for being fast, powerful, and just plain cool. This particular model has been upgraded with a Chevy 350 transmission, which means it's got even more oomph than it did when it first rolled off the assembly line. But don't worry, purists, the original Hydromatic transmission is still available if you want to keep things authentic. And with just 19,000 miles on the odometer, this car has been well preserved over the years. Now, the seller does mention that the car is in good condition and runs well, but they don't go into a whole lot of detail beyond that. So, as with any classic car, there may be a few things that need some attention. But overall, it seems like this Rocket 88 is a solid choice for anyone looking for a vintage ride with plenty of character. One thing to keep in mind, this car is powered by a gas engine, so you'll want to factor in the cost of fuel when you're budgeting for your new ride. But hey, that's just part of the charm of owning a classic car, right? And can we talk about the price for a second? $13,000 might seem like a lot of money, but when you consider the history and the rarity of this car, it's actually a pretty good deal. Plus, with a clean title, you can trust that this car's history is on the up and up. So if you're ready to own a piece of automotive history and cruise around in style, this 1950 Oldsmobile Rocket 88 might just be the car for you. It's got power, it's got style, and it's got a price tag that won't break the bank. 18. We've got a real gem to show you. A stunning 1977 Buick Regal that's up for sale on Craigslist for $15,000. And let me tell you, this is not your average classic car. This beauty is in excellent condition and has been meticulously maintained over the years. First off, just take a look at that gorgeous yellow paint job. It's the original paint, and it's completely rust-free. That's right. This car has been so well cared for that it hasn't even seen a hint of rust. And when you pair that with the mint-condition vinyl top and headliner, you've got a car that looks like it just rolled off the showroom floor. But this Regal isn't just a pretty face. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 350 engine that's only got 70,000 miles on it. And get this, the seller just had a new turbo 350 transmission put in last month, complete with paperwork and a 4-year warranty. That means you can drive this car with confidence, knowing that it's got plenty of life left in it. And let's talk about the upgrades. This Regal is riding on a set of 26 Forgiato rims with fairly new tires and floating caps. It's got a double-din touchscreen stereo system, complete with subs and amps. And if you're feeling nostalgic, you'll be happy to know that the original 8-track player is still in place and working perfectly. But the upgrades don't stop there. This car has remote start, an alarm system, and get this, everything is power and everything works. That's right, from the windows to the locks to the cold AC, this car has been maintained to the highest standard. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but wait, it's got 70,000 miles on it. And you're right, it does. But here's the thing, with classic cars like this, mileage isn't everything. What matters is how well the car has been maintained, and this Regal has been treated like royalty. The seller has all the receipts and paperwork to prove it, including records of the recent tune-up, fluid changes, and more. So if you're in the market for a classic car that's been lovingly maintained and upgraded with all the modern conveniences, this 1977 Buick Regal might just be the one for you. It's got style, it's got power, and it's got a price tag that reflects the quality of the car. But don't just take my word for it. The seller says you have to see it to appreciate it, and I couldn't agree more. 19. We're taking a closer look at a real gem, a 1972 Ford Ranchero 500 that's up for sale on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $13,500, and let me tell you, it's worth every penny. First off, this Ranchero is an original California car, which means it's been basking in that Golden State sunshine for over 50 years. And boy, does it show. The body is straight as an arrow, with no rust or dents to be found. The original gold glow metallic paint is still shining bright, and the bed inside looks like it's never even seen a toolbox. Under the hood, you'll find a 351 Cleveland motor that's ready to rumble. The seller has even thrown in a new 2 BBL carb to sweeten the deal. And with a C4 automatic transmission and matching numbers, this Ranchero is the real deal. But that's not all. This car is loaded with features that'll make your jaw drop. Factory air conditioning that's been converted to R134? Check. Factory tinted glass? You bet. And the original vinyl top is in great condition too. Now I know what you might be thinking. A car this old must have some issues, right? Well, the seller is upfront about a few minor things. The dash pad has some cracking, but there's a carpet cover included. And the heater core leaks, but there's a universal underdash heater installed. And while the tires have plenty of tread life, they are a bit old. But fear not, the seller has another set of wheels with newer tires and even some different wheel covers to choose from. Other than that, this Ranchero is in excellent shape. The lights, gauges, and even the tachometer all work like a charm. The battery is fairly new, and the power disc brakes and steering make driving a breeze. And with a factory AM radio that still works, plus a mono FM converter, you can cruise in style with your favorite tunes. The seller is also including the original blue license plates, which is a really cool touch. And with current registration and a clean title in their name, you can buy with confidence. Now, as with any used car, this Ranchero is being sold as is. But the seller seems like a straight shooter and is happy to answer any questions you might have. They'll even take you for a spin to see how she runs. So if you're in the market for a classic car with plenty of character, this 1972 Ford Ranchero 500 is definitely worth checking out. With its stunning original condition, awesome features, and honest seller, it's a deal that's hard to beat. Just don't wait too long. A car like this won't stay on the market for long. 20. Wow, check out this incredible 1985 Chevrolet Corvette. This classic American sports car is an absolute gem, and it could be yours for just $15,000. Can you believe it? This Vetta has only 15,276 miles on the odometer. That's right, you heard me correctly. Just over 15K miles. It's been garaged since 1985 and hardly driven, so it's in fantastic condition. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 350 cubic inch V8 engine with Bosch-tuned port fuel injection, cranking out 230 horsepower and 330 lb-ft of torque. This baby can really move. It's got a smooth shifting automatic transmission and rear-wheel drive for that classic sports car experience. The seller says the condition is excellent, and I believe it. With such low mileage and having been garaged for nearly 40 years, this Corvette is sure to turn heads wherever you go. The iconic styling of the C4 generation Corvette is timeless, with its sleek lines, low profile, and aggressive stance. Inside, you'll find a comfortable cockpit, with all the amenities you'd expect from a classic Corvette. The seller has provided detailed specifications so you know exactly what you're getting. This Vette has a curb weight of just 3,224 pounds with the automatic transmission, making it lightweight and nimble on the road. Don't miss your chance to own a piece of American automotive history. The price is negotiable, so why not reach out to the seller and see if you can make a deal? This 1985 Chevrolet Corvette is a true enthusiast's car, and it's waiting for a new owner to take it out on the open road and experience the thrill of driving a classic sports car. Don't wait. Call now and make this Corvette yours today.